Greetings. This is episode number 5 of the Sell Smarter podcast. My name is Temba. I'm your host and the founder of Sell Smarter. We are a consulting business focusing on data, technology, and latest innovation. Through the Sell Smarter podcast, we bring to you subject matter experts to talk about data, technology, and latest trends, really, which are affecting our businesses. Today, I'm sitting with Esther, who is Chief Data and Analytics at Sasfin Bank. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Temba, and thank you for having me.
Welcome, and thank you for making time for us. We really appreciate your time. We understand that you are a busy person. Can I say busier than the president?
No. I'm not there yet.
Not there yet. Okay. I want to give you an opportunity. I don't usually like introducing people.
Okay.
Because I'll forget something that's very important and very close to your heart.
Okay.
For that reason, I like to allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself. Anything you want to say, anything you feel people should know about you. Go for it.
Wow. Okay. As Temba mentioned, my name is Esther Munyi, and I am the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Sasfin Bank. I have a huge passion for data. Everything data and people. I have a huge drive for people, and that's everything from trying to guide and mentor people to be the best versions of themselves. So I love that, and I am originally from Nairobi, Kenya, but I now call South Africa my home.
Yes.
I am a wife and a mother of a 4-year-old.
Okay.
So when you said busy, you're right. It's not an understatement. It keeps me very busy other than work.
Yeah.
And that's really me.
Okay. I want us to break the ice, right? And this is like an open-ended question.
All right.
What fascinates you about data science?
There's a lot that fascinates me about data. I think the one thing that fascinates me about data is, we live in a world that has intrinsic and unconscious bias. There's a lot that's not balanced, that's not fair, that's not equal. But when it comes to data, it's fact, right? So when it comes to making decisions, it's one of those things that supplements and helps and supports that decision making and makes sure that from an intrinsic bias perspective, you can sort of, reduce that view. So that's one aspect around data that I love. And also I love the fact that data is being generated every millisecond, every second. And there's definitely going to be new information that did not exist a second ago. And I love to learn. I'm a curious person.
Okay.
So I feel like data is like, in the world of data, it's like going on a treasure hunt. There's so much that you can learn. There's so much that you can explore and discover.
So because of all this, what does the future of business look like? Because of everything you've just said. It sounds exciting to me, but at the same time, it sounds scary because of the speed of change.
Yeah.
Because of the possibilities, opportunities, and also challenges that, this data world, data space era that we're in right now brings to businesses.
Yeah.
So if we're to take a glimpse into the future, and when I say the future, I'm not talking about the next 100 years. I'm talking about the next 2 years. I'm talking about the next 5 years. What does the future look like for you?
That's a very good question. I think the one thing to note about the future for business is that you cannot ignore technology. Businesses cannot ignore it. In fact, there's a saying that every business is a technology business.
I like that.
You have to consider technology in every part of your business model.
Yeah, I can reason with that. Sorry to jump in.
No problem.
Because Lillian from Microsoft said the same thing to me. I've had the opportunity to have coffee with Lillian.
Okay.
And when I asked her the question, Lillian, what do you think I should be doing in my business? What should I be thinking about today in my business? She said to me, well, you've got to think of how your business can become a technology business.
Correct.
Because that's what the future is.
Correct.
So from that day for me, I was always thinking about, but how do we make Sell Smarter a tech-driven business?
Yeah.
So I wanted to add that because I can resonate with what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I think also what comes to that, and you raised it earlier, is that fear that comes with change, right? Technology and also how quickly technology is evolving is something quite scary, because before you know it, you're trying to work out the technology of today, something else comes in tomorrow and completely replaces what you've learned yesterday. And that can be very, very, very scary for people. I mean, there's now this whole concept of man versus machine. A lot of people are fearful that their jobs will be replaced by AI and
I'm so glad you've said that, because I've got a follow-up question for that. Yeah,
okay,
but go on.
Yes, and I think that the one thing people need to understand is I do not think that machine can replace man. I always say take the certain things about people, about the human element that machines cannot have. Like, machines don't have intuition. Machines cannot really have vision. The things that that machines cannot do, that people have. Take, for example, I always look back at during the COVID pandemic, a lot of people were in hospitals surrounded by machines that were keeping them alive. And they could not, some of them were actually at a point where the COVID-19 virus would take their life, and they spent the last moments of their lives alone. That's something that machine cannot replace. I mean, human beings, a machine cannot replace humans when it comes to that. So there are things that machines can replace, and that's really around redundant things, routine, ambiguous tasks that really are just things machines can do. Mm-hmm. We need to focus on the things that we as human beings are good at, and that is creating, that is strategizing, that's innovating. And however, in the world of social media and instant gratification and overconsumption of information, we're starting to become less and less creative. We're starting to become less and less human in the sense of when it comes to innovation. Because we're just over-consuming, and machines and AI, that's what actually they were built for, is to consume information. In fact, they did a study in the UK where they said that people consume more cooking-related programs than they actually do cooking. So that tells you that there's definitely that shift. But we definitely need to find that balance where we look at what can AI and machine and technology do for us, and then what can we from a human perspective, or even from a purpose-driven perspective, start to do.
But I want you to take this further, because it's quite interesting to me. Mm-hmm. People are consuming more of the cooking programs than they're doing the actual cooking. Correct. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does it mean people are interested in the learning and not the doing, or what? How would you interpret that?
So I think there's an overconsumption of information, and that's overconsumption of information. And like I mentioned earlier, what AI is good at is consuming and processing data. So I think we need to leave that particular aspect to the machine and to AI for consumption. We need to come to a place where we're living in a world where, we're living. We're not just consuming, we're actually living, we're doing, we're experiencing, we are exploring. Because consuming means that you are busy either sitting, lying down and consuming information and not actually living. So that's something that I think that we need to think about, is how do we balance that overconsumption of information as people, and what AI and machines can do for us.
100%. I like that. Let's make this more practical. Company ABC is thriving, in this era of data and AI and everything. What are they doing right? I mean, you can think of a company that you know of, that you can see from the outside, these guys, they've got everything figured out. What do you think they're doing right?
Wow. I think that companies that are doing well when it comes to being data driven have realized that data has to be at the heart of their strategy, of their vision. They realize that data is part of their bloodline. It is something that they've realized that it is important, it's critical, and it's not something that's understood just from a from a strategic perspective, and just it's not a by the way, it actually has to be a key strategic driver for the organization. And this is something that has to be understood from top down. And this is from the board, especially the big corporates, from the board all the way downwards. What we do find a lot of organizations are doing, you find people that understand the importance of data are not necessarily sitting at the top. They're either in the middle. So it's important that when it comes to driving data and insights as an organization, it's driven from the top down.
Yeah.
And another thing that organizations are good at is, if you really think about it, what we're asking decision makers to do, or leaders of organizations to do, is to shift the way that they've been making decisions.
Okay.
And start to utilize data as part of how they make decisions. That is a very big shift mentally and psychologically, right?
Yeah.
Because you're asking people who've been using a completely different way of making decisions for the last 20 plus years to now all of a sudden change.
Yeah.
So organizations that are doing well around data have understood that there has to be a cultural transformation when it comes to data.
Okay.
And another thing around organizations that are doing well around data is that they have key executive leaders that are looking after the data capability for the organizations. And these are people that are sitting at the decision-making tables. They're not just sitting in, the middle office or the back office. They're actually sitting in the rooms and the tables where the decisions are being made when it comes to data. So it's important to have, people with roles such as this CDO or CDAO in very key positions of the business. Otherwise, it's very difficult to drive that's a data strategy. Another thing is also just having a culture that's innovative and takes risks. It's very
innovative
difficult
and take risks.
Yes, it's very difficult to be data driven if you're not willing to take that step and take that risk of using data to make decisions. So it's important that you have that sort of culture.
Let's start from the culture transformation. How do we do that? How do we transform our culture from this is how we used to do things and this is how we'll continue doing things to this is how we used to do things, but we're prepared then to take that risk, right?
Yeah.
And try new things. How do we do that?
How do you do that? It's a very good question. I think that the first step is acknowledging where you are. Okay. So it's understanding where you are. What is your organizational readiness to take that step? Because it's one thing to want to take that step, but are you ready? Do you have the tools and the skills to actually take it forward?
Okay, tools and skills.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, do you have the risk appetite to take that step? Right?
Is it negotiable?
Yes.
Is it a matter of do I have the risk appetite, or it's a matter of this has to be done? And
it's a journey. A lot of people think it's something that can happen overnight. That's not true. It has to be. It's something that you have to realize that it's a journey. It will take. There has to be some roadmap that you're looking at. Yes, you understand there's an end result.
Yeah.
But it's going to take some time to get there, depending on the maturity of your organization and how invested you are in getting there.
But I guess what I'm asking is, do I have a choice? Is it an issue of we can live without type of a thing?
Again, it depends on how ready you are in the risk appetite. You need to look at different factors. So, for example, if you take different markets and industries, the sort of organizations where the clients that they deal with are very, they like the way things are. So
is it comfort zone?
It's a comfort zone.
Okay.
Correct. It's a comfort zone. So it's understanding the risks that you need to take, the trade-offs you need to take. So if we take, for example, I'm going to use a very simple example. They are people who are used to going to, when it comes to banking, they want to go to the branch and take out money, right?
Yeah.
Or deposit money physically. But they've been different banks that have made the strategic decision to be branchless.
Yes.
What does it mean for the people that prefer to go and what happens there is either the organization needs to take the risk that they might lose those clients to other banks that have their branches, right? Or they need to take a step back and understand, are these our key clients? Is this what they really want? Are they ready to also take that step?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The organizational readiness is very important, not just from the organization, but also based on the clients that they are dealing with.
I see.
Yes, and the market.
I get you. The following question, I have a sense that you've already answered it indirectly.
Okay.
But for the purpose of our viewers, I think let's go for it.
Okay.
And I don't know how practical this can be.
Okay.
You don't have to speak about, their current reality in your business where you are right now. We can generalize it. But what I want to ask is, you as a data practitioner, someone who's involved, has got their hands dirty in the space. What are those core challenges that you are dealing with, that you are facing, and possibly see other data leaders facing today?
How much time do you have? I think the first thing we touched on earlier was cultural transformation, change management.
Change management.
Change management is a huge, huge challenge because, like I said before, it for you to be data driven, for you to really adapt new technology, new ways of doing things, there has to be a cultural shift, and that's not easy, especially if your culture is a culture that is that's working, that's thriving. Now you want to add on or take away or supplement, and that can really create a shift in the way things are. Some people will embrace it and some people will resist it. So it's important that when we drive these initiatives, this change initiatives or this transformational initiatives, we have to consider the change aspect of it. Because change is, especially when it comes to people are complex, right?
100%.
And in order to get people to buy into the change, there's a saying and I forget the person who said it, that, change is a threat when it happens to you, but change is an opportunity when it happens by you. So it's important that you also take people with you through the journey of change. It's not just something that, the CEO comes and says, right, we want this. And I've seen this a lot, especially with AI, where you have the CEOs in a golf course, they're talking about AI, and now they come in and they say,
it's fascinating.
We want to do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
It's important to understand the why, and it's important to make sure that you bring people through that journey of change.
Okay.
The other challenge that I see is skills scarcity.
Oh, is it?
There's a huge skills scarcity, especially in South Africa.
For data professionals?
For data professionals, correct.
Okay.
Particularly domain-specific data professionals. It's, a data professional that understands banking versus insurance are very different, right? And also in terms of experience, it's the gap between what we're seeing from a junior, 3 to 5 year, experienced professionals versus the more seasoned professionals. The gap is quite wide. And also, because of that scarcity and now because of globalization, people are able to work anywhere in the world.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So that means is that we're losing talent to global organizations, especially organizations that are willing to put money where the mouth is.
The mouth is,
right?
yeah, 100%.
They have to be the ones with the deep pockets. Yeah, so that is a huge, huge challenge.
Okay, that's quite interesting. And I think the following question is more interesting, actually. And I don't know what you'll think about it, but I want to ask you, who does the data benefit the most?
Who does the data benefit the most?
Yes. In our business, who actually benefits the most from this data?
Everybody does.
Okay.
But I'll just elaborate on that.
Okay.
Not all data is equal.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's this notion, when people talk about data, they think we're talking about the whole data ecosystem. No, not all the data is equal.
Okay.
And in organizations, it's important to understand what are those critical data assets for your business, but also for the different, I would say, stakeholders of your business. If you think about data, or can even take it as far as metrics for the shareholder versus the board versus the executive versus the finance analyst versus the data analyst, it's different. The priority is different. The requirement is different. But it's important as a business to understand what are those crown jewels? What are the critical data assets for your clients?
Okay.
What's important to your employees? What's important to your suppliers? What's important to your regulators? What's important to... You have to look at all the different stakeholders around your business and understand what are those critical data elements of each one of those stakeholders. And based on that, then you can prioritize how you manage that data. Because, data that's not important or useful, you shouldn't focus on.
100%,
right? You need to focus your energy, your investments, your resources on the right information. That's why they say data is about, when it comes to data management or data analytics, it's about getting the right data to the right people at the right time.
Okay. So if we're to make this more practical and maybe use the marketing department as a case study.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
How can then the marketing team leverage more on data to enhance their marketing campaigns and efforts to possibly improve ROI?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
You must start off with, if you take, for example, a marketing campaign, you need to start off by understanding what exactly is your end game. What is your target goal for that campaign? A lot of the times is to drive lead generation, or improve sales. So it depends on the objective of that campaign. But you cannot just go out with a generic campaign that targets everybody. It's important that you segment and you target the right audience. That way you can utilize your resources effectively.
Okay, let's use an example of segmentation.
Yes.
We're wanting to run a campaign.
Correct.
Let's share with me an example of what a segment could be. Is it women between 35, 38 with a 4-year-old?
So I think it's important then to start off by using analytics to understand exactly that.
Okay.
So first of all, it's to segment your client customer base and work out what are your, you can look at your most profitable client base. And also by looking at most profitable client base doesn't mean that that's who you target. The analytics could tell you that maybe predictively, it could tell you that you have exhausted this particular segment. Maybe you need to look at your second best segment. Okay. Or there's an untapped audience or target market that you haven't looked at.
I love that.
So it's important to look at it holistically, not just at the client base that you know, right? Let's also look at what are the opportunities that are out there. Then using analytics, you can also look at what is the possibility, what is the probability that my campaign, if I run this campaign and I invest in this campaign, what is the probability that it will be successful and I'll get the return on investment on what I've put in for that campaign? So using analytics, whether it's predictive, prescriptive, client analytics, and also the first thing is just to understand your client. It's difficult to segment your customer base if you actually don't understand your clients, right?
I get what you mean.
Yeah, so you first need to understand your client, understand their behaviors. And also another thing is around prescriptive analytics is to look at what could change, right? So what behavior could change in future when it comes to our clients, and what could potentially be profitable for us as a business, and how do we make that happen?
Yeah.
How do we prescribe, and what actions should we take based on the insights we're getting in our models, in our, the AI models that we're building that will tell us if we make this particular decisions, and we can be able to take certain actions that will yield better results for us. So there's so much that can happen when it comes to analytics. Many organizations talk about this KYC concept, right? Yeah.
It's nothing new. We know about that, but I'm really curious to find out from you. Do you think really that most businesses are putting in the effort really to know the customers? Because you talked about about it now to say know your customers.
Yeah.
But I personally don't think some of my service providers I don't think they understand me. What's your take on that? Like, do you think that your service providers understand you? Maybe I should throw the question back to you.
Depends. But also, I think it's a very difficult question. And I'll tell you why. Because if you look at, for example, if you take the generational conversation, this not this conversation around Gen Z and millennials being very much purpose driven. What that means is that when they make decision, they make it based on which organizations do they want to associate themselves with based on the purpose of that business. Whilst the previous generation is, will this organization or this product or service meet my need?
Yeah.
Our current generation is more around, will it meet my need? And also, is it aligned to my values and my purpose?
Okay.
So it's
okay,
very different, right? So
100%.
so I think there's this shift that's happening. And I think a lot of organizations are starting to understand that they have to know the needs, and not just the needs of today. The reality is that needs are changing every day.
Yes.
My needs today can change tomorrow. So it's this constant change that's happening. And you have to constantly be trying to understand, what is that change? The client today might have, maybe my needs today is I like to drive a Mercedes Benz, and the next year I'm like, well, now I like something else, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It really, and the reason why that happens is that now we have options, right? We're living in a world where we have access to options, we have access to information. So the more we know, the more we can,
access to different product solutions and all this type of things. I mean, if I come to a restaurant, I don't like it, there's always another one next door, you know, that I can go try out their food and stuff. If I go to a coffee shop, I don't like a coffee, I can always try what the one next door. So I feel like if I don't like your car brand and whatever the case might be, there's always another car brand that's next door. That's next door even.
Correct. So actually, I believe that a company that says that they know their clients is a dangerous statement to say. They have to constantly be trying to know their clients, because it's always going to be changing.
That's a good point. I've got a concept that I call one step ahead. So I feel like it sounds to me like, well, that's what you're saying, that business must always find a way to be one step ahead of the customers, the needs of the customers, and possibly the market dynamics and changes and stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Well, it depends on what you mean by one step ahead.
Okay.
So you know, if you look at business strategies, there's certain business strategies where it's about understanding what our client base is going to want tomorrow.
Okay.
Right? And then you drive your strategy towards that. But there's some organizations that say, how can we prescribe what our clients will want tomorrow? Okay.
That's a good point.
Right. So what can we build that, I mean, think about the iPhone or the phones of today. When they came out in early, I think late 90s, you know, there were a lot of people who thought, we don't need this, right? But now that the phone was there and we had, and you know, the mobile phone came, the way they marketed it and branded phones, it became now a need. And in today's world, who doesn't have a phone? Who doesn't have a cell phone? It's now a must to have a cell phone.
I love that example. Isn't it a bit dangerous though also to approach it like, I know it worked for jobs and other business and stuff, but I mean, for the actuaries who are sitting in these thread sessions coming up with products and stuff, and they believe they'll prescribe to the client that you need this, but when they go to market, it's actually the opposite. You find that the customers actually don't need that. How do you strike that balance?
I think
is it not a gamble though? Would you say it's a gamble?
I think every business is a gamble.
Okay.
Right? I think it's just like I said, it depends on your risk tolerance. Your risk appetite, right?
Okay. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, it depends on the risk that you're willing to take. And also it's also really around branding, right? And marketing, I mean. So how you market and how you position the brand or how you position the product. And how you know, there's a whole science around marketing.
Okay, that's a good point. I love that point. I love that. That's a very, very good point, actually. Wow. And I feel like maybe this podcast should have been about that specific point. Did we have to wait for this long to get to that point? Because we should have just got here, ask you the question, you answer, we're done. You know? 5 minutes in, we give people what they want. I want to ask you about the top 3 questions businesses are thinking about today.
I think that we're living in the concept of a VUCA world. right?
Yeah.
The whole volatile, this world is uncertainty. And also if you look at the macroeconomic factors that impact our society today,
Yeah.
it's important that businesses start to think about how can they be more agile? How can they adapt to change quickly? You know, the decisions that they have been making yesterday, today might not matter. You know, the strategy they had yesterday might not matter tomorrow. So it's important to understand how can they quickly change with the way the world is
Okay, so
quickly
that's question
changing.
number one.
That's one.
That they should be asking themselves.
Correct. How agile are they?
Okay, 100%.
I think the other one is in a lot of organizations, and look, I'm really not trying to put organizations on the spot here, but there's this notion that a client is my client, right? A business thinks that the client that I have is mine.
Okay.
And that's not true. A client has options, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand that I do not own the client, hence I do not own the data. Right? So if that's the case, how can I ensure that I can share data responsibly, collaborate responsibly, in order to leverage data that exists that I don't have, in order to, one, understand my clients better, and two, create personalized experiences about my client. What I mean by that is, for example, if I am a client that I'm a person that likes to shop at Woolworths, and Woolworths has information around me as a client.
Yeah.
But perhaps there's certain things that I buy at Macro or I buy at Pick and Pay. But if you were a retail company and you had all of that information about that one person, about me, it gives you a bigger picture. But if you go with the notion of only what you know about what you have, based on the information you have, it's not a clear picture of really what that client is about. And the only way we can really, bridge that gap is if we share information. And there's a fear about sharing information. And I know there's the whole concept of data privacy and POPIA, but there's ways to get around that. It's about ethical use and sharing information responsibly, right?
100%.
Correct. That the other thing is, there's this notion that we can do it all by ourselves.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You need to understand your limits. What can I do? What should I do? And what should I outsource?
I like that. 100%.
How do you partner with the right people who know how to do this thing well? And you partner with them in order to take you forward. It's not a must that you do everything yourself, right?
Okay, it's not a must that you do everything yourself. Okay, that's a nice one.
And also just having a clear purpose. I know, it's not just always about profit. It's not always about that. Like I said, the Gen Zs and millennials and new generations, they want to know what is the purpose of that organization.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, with skill scarcity, people want to work for organizations that, think about sustainability, think about environmental factors, social responsibility, and things like that. So it's important to also consider that.
Okay, I like that. Okay. Let's talk a bit about Woolworths. You said you love shopping at Woolworths. Let's talk a bit about Woolworths. Maybe they will sponsor the podcast. Why do you like shopping at Woolworths? You're not the first person, to say that.
Interesting. Why do I like shopping at Woolworths? Number one, I think they have all the products that I need as Esther.
Okay.
When I go to Woolworths, I know I'm going to get what I want.
Okay.
Right? That's the one thing. I think also the shopping experience is quite, for me, funny enough, I have social anxiety. Not a lot of people know this. So sometimes I like to look for shops where I know it's not going to be, it's not going to have a lot of people. It's a lot of space. And being in those spaces make me comfortable. So that I might have a very unique reason, but that's just me.
Okay, I see.
And also just the customer service.
Okay, so you're impressed. You are impressed
Yes.
with the quality of the food.
Quality of the food, absolutely.
It's also
Yes,
great.
correct.
I love shopping at Woolworths,
Really?
by the way.
Why do you like shopping?
Yeah, I think it's the quality of the food really, and I mean, there's so many things when I buy from Woolies. I like how fresh they are. I like how they taste, all this
Yeah.
type of things, you know.
And convenience.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the fact that most of the time when I go shopping, there's always someone checking the expiry date, you know, putting them in a trolley. They don't belong on the shelf anymore. You know, so that kind of gives me the confidence that I'm eating fresh food. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I like that. I like that. I like that the food is fresh.
Not true. Very true.
Yeah, but some people have accused me. They said I'm doing it for status. I'm like, there's something about that. I don't think the food at Woolies is that expensive, actually.
Agreed.
You know, some things maybe, but not everything is expensive.
And as a data person, I can tell you there's
Yeah.
certain things that are actually cheaper at Woolworths
Yeah,
than
right.
other stores and other stores. So I also look at those facts. So there's certain things I know I'll buy at Woolworths because they're cheaper, like toilet paper and milk. I know
Yeah,
that for
yeah.
a fact it's usually cheaper than most spaces.
Okay.
Then I look for other things that I know I can get cheaper elsewhere.
Yeah, okay.
So also using data is important.
Yeah, look, we've bragged enough. We've bragged enough about Woolworths.
Sure.
We've given them free airtime for too long. We need to move on.
Okay.
I'm on my second last question, and I want to ask you around. I want to ask you a question around the data and AI. You know, how can we marry the two?
How can you marry the two? Interesting. So I think, you can't have AI without data.
Okay.
Full stop. Full stop. That's the whole point of AI. AI uses data, right?
You can't have AI without data.
Correct.
You're now bringing something to my mind now. Can you have a business without data? You say you can't have AI
No.
without data. Can you have a business without data?
No.
So,
I don't believe you can't have business
Okay.
without data. Correct.
okay.
You can't have business without data, and AI cannot exist without data.
So for businesses which are not data driven today, they must forget about being AI.
No, so I think that the what I mean by that is before you can even look at, leveraging AI, you need to first of all look at how you're managing your data. A lot of businesses collect data. Even if you're a little spaza shop and the way you balance your book is manual and the way you do your stock take is manual and it's all in a book, that's data, right? Just because it's in a book versus in a system doesn't mean it's any less data. It's information,
100%,
right?
100%.
So it's important to first of all understand, do you understand your data and how you're managing that data? Then the next thing is, actually the first thing is to understand what is your strategy. What do you want to do with data?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
So what do you want to do with data? What's that business use case? You start there. Then you understand, okay, based on the use case, how can I leverage data, right, to meet that strategy?
Yeah, I love
Right,
that. I
right,
love that.
yeah.
You know, I've worked a lot with sales managers to really drive sales success, and one the primary focus that I'm seeing in most organizations is for the sales managers to have the ability to coach their team members, but not necessarily the ability to interact with data, right? So, I guess what I want to ask you is, how can a sales leader, right? And it's I think it speaks to what we talked about earlier about the marketing team leveraging on data to drive marketing campaigns and all those things. How can a sales leader, sales manager leverage on the same data to drive sales forecasting and productivity?
That's a good question. I mean, again, you start off with that use case. Like you talked about, maybe it's about how do I improve my sales revenue, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
could be a use case. And then you need to then, reverse engineer and say, this is what I want to achieve. I want to improve my sales revenue. How do I do that? And you look at all the different factors and the different variables that surround the sales information. And then what data do you have that you can use in order, number one, to understand your current sales, your sales pipeline, your sales outlook. And then also historical information is important. For me to be able to understand how I can improve my sales revenue, I need to know how have I been performing. Right? So
I
you
love
need to
that.
look at history. You need to look at what has been happening in the last 3 years. That's why it's always, when they talk about sales forecast, they have to look at historical information, usually 5 years or even longer. The more information you have, the better. So you can use that information in order to to understand how you're going to, even maybe predict how you're going to do that.
100%.
The other thing to also think about when it comes to sales data is other variables. A lot of people look at just the sales information that they have internally in their business. But sales is impacted by just more than your internal data. Sales is impacted by the market, right? What are the market variables? What's happening economically, right? You need to look at other factors such as your clients, right? How are your clients responding to your products or your services, right? You have to look at things like seasonality. If you think about, things like, if you look at when there's an uptake of when people are buying cars, there's certain seasons, right? It's usually, I think, when people are getting their bonuses, right? So you need the festive season, you know what I mean? So it really depends. So you need to factor in all of those other variables into this forecasting. It's not just about internal data and history. You have to supplement that with external information.
So are you saying that's where sales and marketing should be collaborating?
Absolutely. Sales and marketing have to collaborate, especially in today's times. Because if you think about marketing analytics and what you can do, if you think about AI as an example, you can be able to have real-time marketing lead generation. What I mean by that, AI is able to quickly consume information and then quickly run an algorithm and then spear out information or insights. So you can have a scenario where you have a sales or a marketing campaign that in real time, depending on the person that's interacting with that campaign, could easily get a personalized offering in real time. That happens. And that is happening without a person manually doing it. It's happening without actually a human interaction. It's all using AI. So you can have marketing campaign, sales, all collaborating together to create this offering, real-time offering to clients. I mean, there's even real-time credit and funding offerings out there, especially the new fintechs companies that are out there. They're offering credit to people and organizations that didn't have access to credit. And you can do this in real time. There's things like buy now, pay later services. There's embedded financing now where you can buy a product, and I'm sure you've seen this. You can go to Takealot, you can go to different sites, and within that you can get a loan for what you're buying.
Yes, 100%.
So there's so much you can do with sales and marketing.
That's quite interesting. It's interesting and also exciting.
Very exciting.
Esther.
Yes.
We've come to the end of our discussion.
Oh wow, that was fast.
There's a reason why I want to keep this short.
Okay.
It's because I want to invite you back.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just worried that if you give our viewers everything at once,
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, nothing to say the next time we want you back. Or they are even, over you. Okay, what else can she tell us? She's told us everything. So let's give them one bite at a time, okay?
Sure.
But I don't want us to, leave them with nothing.
Okay.
I want us to share, your final words in terms of, a tip that you believe for a business that aspires to be big data driven should be doing. So I'm a business. I've got this, aspiration to be big data driven. What tip can you share with me? Your camera is this one, so you can talk with our audience.
Our audience, yes. Everybody's probably heard Simon Sinek's saying, "Start with the why."
Yeah.
Right. Start with why you want to use data. Come up with a business use case as to why you want to be data driven. Not just because everyone's doing it, not just because it's the new trend. It has to mean something to your business. So start with the why. The second thing is to understand where you are. Are you ready? What's your organizational readiness? And what is your risk appetite in taking that step to be data driven? And prepare. right? Prepare that journey, because it's not something that will happen overnight. It's something that will take time. For some organizations, it will be quite quick, depending on the investment and the risk tolerance they have. And for others, it will take time. So it's important to understand what is your organizational readiness. And I think lastly is just preparing for the future. The reality is the skills of today are not going to be the skills of tomorrow. The technology we have today is not going to be there tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, not literally, but it's important to also think about what do we need to do to prepare for that future? What are the skills we need to bring into the organization in order to be ready for that future? You know, there's some organizations, and actually a lot of, I've heard a lot of, leaders who've asked me, Esther, what do I need to do to be AI ready? And it's exactly that. It's just to be ready, prepare. Go look at what exactly do you need to put in place in terms of governance and controls. Because the reality is, with things like AI and emerging technology, you need to factor in things like security. How do you protect your organization? How do you protect your data? How do you prepare your employees? How do you prepare your clients? So it's important that you prepare and think about what do you need to put in place whilst you prepare. And also decide when will you be ready. Now, I always hear, we're preparing for AI, but then what is that point where we'll say, now we will be ready? This is the point that we're ready to take that leap. You need to actually understand and realize what exactly are those factors that will help you decide when you'll be ready once you're going through that preparing for that journey.
Yeah. 100%. I love that so much. Someone said to me, if you haven't got something to benchmark, yourself against, you always think that you're the best.
Correct.
Because you haven't got something that you're comparing yourself to, right?
You can always compare yourself to yourself.
You can, but what I
understand.
But what I mean is that, and there's a follow-up question that I'm saying this, and I'm talking about healthy competition at the same time. We're in high school. We were friends, and our competition was who's going to score the highest in physics. That was our competition.
Correct.
So, but if we didn't have that, I wouldn't have pushed myself to study harder, all these type of things, because I think where I am, I'm fine. But I guess what I want to ask you is, when you look at South Africa and Kenya, what are you seeing? We have to compare South Africa to something. And you are from Kenya, so
wow.
I want us to compare the two.
Whew. Look, this is a very dangerous question, because depending on what I say, I might offend either or. I think they're very, very fundamentally different societies. If I look at South Africa in the context of technology and skills and market appetite, South Africa has a huge market appetite for certain skills, for certain technology. There's a huge appetite for it.
Okay.
But they lack the skills.
I see. Okay.
Whilst in Kenya, it's the opposite way. There isn't the market appetite. The skills exist. So you're having that imbalance. Right?
Okay. I see.
The other thing that it's interesting that I've observed in Kenya is around the circumstances of the society. Like, because there's so many professionals, so many people with the skills, not enough jobs, not enough, market for them to be able to really, disrupt and integrate into those industries and into those markets. It forces people to be innovative. You have to come up with something another person doesn't have, because that's the only way you can get ahead.
I love that.
Right?
Okay.
But in a society where you don't have that, that circumstance doesn't exist, I think that balance of innovation is different. So I think that's where I see the fundamental difference. But can you imagine if there's a gap in Kenya, there's a gap in South Africa? Imagine what would happen if there's that cohesion and collaboration.
I was thinking about that already.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it already.
Yeah.
Esther, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamba.
I really appreciate your time. Any final words?
Not really. I think I've spoken enough. But I can't wait to be back again.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamba.
There you have it. That's Esther, Chief Data and Analytics at Saswin Bank. Until next time, thank you.